In fact, the Wiggler, our boss didn't like that because he thought it was a bit silly, and so he tried to call it the remote or something. But you don't get to choose your own nicknames, do you? They just stick. So the Wiggler it was. It wiggled.
The bowling ball one just had a bunch of freewheeling wheels on the bottom. You just lob it through shot, wouldn't you? If it was just showing out.
Did you actually do that?
Yeah, on the deck of the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
How many bowling balls did you go through?
It was quite broken by the end of it. Yeah.
And then by the end, so by the Last Jedi, we had another one, which was the red carpet, but that didn't get built until after we'd finished filming episode 7. But what we're going to do now is just we'll have a look at each of those technologies, or the principal ones, let's say.
Yeah. So when we'd sort of come up with the head on the ball, and we sort of knew the pattern, but no one knew how BB-8 moved yet. So now we were beginning to know how he looked, but we didn't know how he would move. So I thought, I need to just make a quick model just to see how this is going to work. So I must stress this took half a day, this model. I don't want anyone to...
So we've got a video of this test here. Here we go. No one's seen this, I don't think.
So this is just... And what's amazing about this is as soon as I saw this, there's more character in it than there should be somehow. I mean, it could be down to my puppeteering. But it's got so much around corners, how it wheels about, and it was just a gift, really. There's something about the head on top of the ball was just amazing. I was so excited when I first saw this. I sort of ran down to Neil and said, "You've got to see this."
And this is where you came up with the wiggle as it moves along as well.
Yeah. So I sort of knew it was going to work at this point, actually, and I think this is when JJ began to. Really
this is when he became a character and not just a tool.
Yeah, that was the first time really that we saw it. So very exciting.
And there it is. So on the left-hand side is our colleague Giles.
Yeah. Who thinks he made most of BB-8?
Yeah.
he did
make most of BB-8.
Yeah, but I have to mention Giles. And then the puppet one that you saw in that previous clip sort of evolved with Neil would find the character in it and give us performance notes, and Brian Herring was brought on as the puppeteer with Dave Chapman, and that evolved into the image you see on the right, which we used a lot on set for the really kind of emotive stuff, especially sort of intimate scenes with with Daisy or with John. That was really, really useful.
And just a quick note, we'll touch on this in a minute, but you'll see on that picture on the right that there's a grey arm that goes around the left of BB-8. So the camera would have been on the opposite side, so that would have been the cleaner side for camera. And then what we do if the camera was on this side, what we're looking now, we'd have flipped that arm around the other side, so we always have a clean side of BB-8 and a dirty side. So we try and make it as clean as possible to make less work for ILM. That's in Abu Dhabi, in a place called Qasr Al Sarab, which was incredible. It was in the middle of nowhere, and there was one hotel, which was a 6-star hotel, which was terrible. We had to stay there for a week.
We didn't see any of it, though, did we?
Not much. We saw the pool one day, and then we swam to the bar, and that's where we stayed. But
this was an amazing. So this was the first day on set. Well, this shot wasn't, but this location was the first day on set. And I mean, it's baking hot out there, and an incredible amount of courage to just, right, we're going to start the film, and we're going to start it in one of the most extreme environments. You know, it was nuts.
No pressure.
No.
And it was hot, so hot. A lot of people, I bought these Desert Army boots to wear out there. A lot of people went out in standard hiking boots and were walking through the sand, and their soles were melting off their boots because they weren't built for desert. It was hot. So,
what kind of challenges did you guys run into with BB-8 on set in Abu Dhabi?
Well, the glue mounted.
Yeah, so there's quite a few actually. So it was very windy, and the wind would pick up the sand, but it was also a flood plain, so it picked up some sand and salt and blow it into all my mechanisms. So it could not have been more challenging, really. Plus just the heat. It turns out a lot of the glues I'd used gave up at about 50 degrees C, which is...
And the ambient temperature was 52 most days.
So it shows... Yeah, it was an interesting first week on the show. So.
And the trikes, yep. So this is the first thing I did for the project, which was to build a simulation. So Josh had phoned up and said, we've got this wacky idea of how to drive this thing around radio controlled. It's going to have 2 wheels at the back, like stabilizers. And so the first thing I was really contracted to do was to design this in a simulation package. So I'm actually driving this on joysticks. This isn't animated. So we can actually drive it around and see what it felt like. And that's a Millennium Falcon ramp at 15 degrees to make sure we could get up the ramp. And then there is our first trike built. We imported the finest sand from the local builders merchant.
We're spinning on the spot a bit there, but, and then we tested it out on, this is at the back lot at Pinewood Studios.
Some of the sets being built there.
So we would take it out there to be tested. It's got cling film over the head to try and stop all the sand being, this futile attempt at stopping the sand being blown in, but seeing how that goes up ramps and everything. So that was the trikes.
Yeah, the trikes. So it was literally the first thing we did. The first shot on film, I believe, in Abu Dhabi with Daisy Ridley was the trikes, and it was massive amounts of pressure. That is the first shot.
So this was Daisy's first film, and these were her first scenes. And so I think this is why JJ really wanted to be BB-8 to be there, because otherwise Daisy's acting to, it could have been CGI BB-8, and it might have been at one point, but Daisy would have had to act to a lighting stand, so it was. I think that's really one of the reasons why they were so keen to have BB-8 physically present on set.
Authentic.
You asked about challenges as well. You can see there's loads of carpet on the floor.
Yeah.
There's a challenge. They covered it with sand, but we were just practicing on carpet there.
Wow. You mentioned, working with Daisy. How much interaction did you guys have with the actors on set?
Yeah, lots of interaction. Yeah. We had lots of interesting moments.
Yeah. There's
Tell.
Well, I've got a Harrison Ford story.
Yeah.
Which I could regale you with.
I think we'll take that.
Yeah. Okay. So we're doing a shot in The Force Awakens where does everyone remember? There's a shot where they're going to Maz's castle and there's a big red robot on the right-hand side. Do you remember that shot? And they're going towards the front doors. And BB-8's behind Harrison Ford, and he'd just come back after breaking his ankle. That was the first thing we did after he'd broken his ankle, and gone off and come back to set again. So everyone was a little bit nervous, and on that day I was driving BB-8 the trike and following Harrison Ford on his ankles. Right, so I'm thinking, so for one thing I'm kind of thinking, oh God, just don't get too close, don't trip him up.
And the trike is heavy.
Yeah.
That will take you out. That thing, it's really powerful.
It'll drive up your legs easily if and so I'm kind of thinking, just be a bit ginger with it, but also it's a really tricky shot because the camera's quite low and I'm stood behind the camera and it tracks in with him. And he goes walking off and he gets kind of, like halfway down this hall away from me. And when you get that far away from something, it's quite hard to judge distance, how close you are to something. So we do this about 3 times, and on the 3rd take, he comes over to me, we've reset, we've gone back to our number 1s and we've reset, and he goes, you having trouble keeping up? And I'm like, and I'm thinking, do I make a joke about this? Do you joke with Harrison Ford? I don't know. And so I go, and I'm kind of thinking, what's he mean? And he said, and he was really sweet. He went, because I can take the pace off if you can't keep up. And I thought, that's cool. Harrison Ford saying he will slow down for me because he wants the shot to look better. And then I realised straight away what had happened. And what it is we do the take and I'd be about 6 foot behind him, following him down the path. And then JJ would say, cut. I stop when JJ tells me to. Harrison stops when he wants to. So he'd walk another 12 feet and then go, yeah, now I'm cut. And look back and I'm 15 feet behind him. So on the 4th take and 5th take, I just cut when Harrison decided to cut.
Yeah.
He's in charge.
Yeah, he's in charge, yeah.
So Harrison.
Yeah. So the Wiggler is one of our nicest tools, isn't it?
Yeah, there's Giles again. I don't know why he's seen making things. He didn't do
made
anything.
a lot of it.
Yeah, he didn't do anything. But Yeah, the wiggler. So we'd bury that plate in the sand, or we had a little special gizmo that we'd screw to the floor of the Millennium Falcon. In that photo with JJ trying to get out the best performance from BB-8, we've got the plate buried in the sand, I think, and I think
there's a little Easter egg there.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the bottom of BB-8, the bottom orange ring, you see one of the panels is quite black. That's because the glue failed and the panel fell out.
Don't tell anyone.
But fortunately it was off camera, so...
Yeah, so we got away with that one. So it's movie magic. Yeah. So, and that was in Abu Dhabi again, I think.
Yeah. So, I'm just trying to think what's... Oh yeah, so we've got the stunt team, which we touched on briefly. The lightweight, which we could carry around, the stunt one for dropping and stuff, and the bowling ball for throwing through shot. And I think what's coming up next is a bit of video which shows all the technologies tied together.
Yeah, so in this one little sequence, you see it goes from goes from one version to the other.
Here we go. Right, so puppet, trike, and carry. And there you go. And then back to carry. There we go. So the carry just had the head rotate on it, didn't it?
Yeah, and we made it a little bit heavy. We were under sort of pressure to make it nice and light for the actors, but otherwise, if you make it too light, it looks too light. So it's actually quite heavy in the end. And that's the excuse I'm sticking with, by the way, on that one.
And that is the very last shot. We feel that particular frame is the very last shot we did with BB-8. We had to recreate that set to get the internal shot of John with BB-8.
And by this point, when I mean, it was great because by having BB-8 physically there on set, when we'd come out of the little BB-8 compound in the morning, you'd have like hardened riggers going, "Morning, BB-8," like that. So he'd actually sort of, he'd actually sort of become to the crew who have seen a lot of, they've seen a lot. He'd sort of become a real. He was like a real droid.
The English crew can be quite harsh. They're not very forgiving. But yes, that was our last shot. The one thing, John, it wasn't his fault. An aerial snapped. And
I still blame him.
You were trying to glue it in desperately, and we had the first AD, Tommy, hanging over our shoulder, going, "Come on, guys, last shot, no pressure." And it's like, just glue doesn't go off any faster if you shout it on the meters. But we glued it back in, and we did that shot. And whenever an actor finishes their last scene, they get wrapped on the set, and they get a round of applause, which is all very nice. And we finished that, and BB-8, and suddenly everyone was, the AD announced it was the last shot, and we got this massive round of applause, which we never ever expected. And I picked up BB-8 because it's the light one, and I held him aloft. And John Boyega started singing the opening to The Lion King, and we walked off through the applauding crew with that aloft, and John Boyega singing.
Yeah, we knew it was going to be all right by that point.
Exactly. If you get that from the crew, you think actually this could work, and that's just something that was, you can't ever imagine that happening in your career. I doubt it will happen twice. But then we got one more, which was this fella from Anaheim.
Yeah. So we built all the versions that were, absolutely right for filming, but. We knew from the R2 guys that it's always nice to have an R2 at events like this, or maybe at the premiere. I wanted to go to a Hollywood premiere, really. So we thought there needs to be a BB-8 without any rig out the back, one that can just roam around, a real BB-8. And at this point, I think that some footage had been released, and I think everyone thought it was CG. Everyone thought it was going to be a CGI BB-8. So we sort of set about designing a whole new type of mechanism, really, that would make BB-8 work.
And we were also worried that someone else was going to beat us to it.
Yeah, that is true.
A bit of that. The fear helps.
So we had a bit of a head start.
we built a rough version, and we sent a video to JJ and Kathleen Kennedy, and they saw it and they went, "This is great. Could you make it better?" And we went, "Yes."
And what we had to do was do work on the painting. So our painter Henrik Svensson did this incredible paint job that looks just real in the 3D, because on this occasion it couldn't be exactly like the on-screen BB-8s.
And the first thing we got invited to was Celebration Anaheim. We knew it was a big deal for us, especially as everything that can go wrong could go wrong, and it's just it was a massive thing. But it's still, whenever we see that again, that's from Anaheim. That picture, it sends chills down the spine, really.
I mean, was anybody here at that panel in Anaheim, Celebration Anaheim, when BB-8 came out?
Anybody?
Yeah, we got one right there.
Oh well, you should. I should show this clip.
Yeah,
look out for yourself. There should be sound on this one. But
So this is when everyone still thought it was CGI.
It's really loud in the crowd.
everyone's cheering.
What
music? Yeah, we just got, at this point it was just bonkers, and it's going to freeze frame there. And look at the guy in the top right hand corner. We were hoping he was going to be here, because he's printed out in our office. Doesn't even pick the camera up.
You're not kidding, too. He really is printed out in your office.
Oh yeah, no, because he didn't even pick his camera up. He was just like jaw on the floor, just like,
Yeah, that was such a moment when BB-8 came out. But I feel like maybe we should bring him out again. Here, yeah. Would you guys like to see BB-8? Oh, he's here! It's like, you guys are like proud
It's like they were waiting for him or something. And it's
crazy just how much emotion he has, too.
Yeah, you can get a huge amount of emotion out there. And now the technology has come on so well now that I can control it from my mind while sat on stage. It's quite incredible.
BB-8's his own droid.
Of course it is.